Once you learn your craft, you have to respect what you've learned and have the confidence to execute a plan. Life is just about relationships. The stuff doesn't matter, and the older you get, the less stuff you want.
Welcome to Decision Points. I'm Doug Hudson.
I'm Scott Wood.
Welcome, Bill Cawley, Chairman and CEO of Cawley Partners. What's
Happy
up?
to be here. So happy to be here. I'm
Glad
excited.
you got the memo on no socks.
That's kind of the only rule on the Decision Points podcast is no socks.
That's my rule every day if I can.
Is it?
Yeah, no socks.
Yeah.
How about shirts? Are you shirt optional at the
Tank
office?
tops usually.
Tank top.
Yeah.
That is something I can
put
not
sleeves
pull
on
off.
for you.
I can. It's funny. My family's they're gonna just nod their head and shake their head. I have a policy that once you hit 30, if you're running outside as a guy, if you're not within 50 feet of water, you must have a shirt on. So, because one of two reasons. You either look like him and you're trying to show off all your six pack,
Right.
or you look like me and you should not have a shirt on.
yeah.
You should have a so
should
one
be-
of
you
two.
should be covered up.
You need to be near water if you're shirtless.
I agree with that one for sure. The older I get, the less the shirt comes off.
Yeah, for sure.
Bill, thanks for making time. Walk us through a little bit about who you are, where were you raised, maybe some key moments in your kind of early to mid childhood.
Raised in the Midwest, born and raised a Catholic.
Yeah. We're in the Midwest.
LaSalle, Peru, a town of 8,000 people.
Wow.
So I was like an hour and 15 minutes from Chicago.
Okay.
Went to a school in the country where there was 2 classes in each room. So 4th and 5th grade shared 6th and 7th or whatever.
Yeah.
That was,
wow.
It was very small.
Agricultural oriented?
Yes. My dad was broke. We were living in a wealthy cousin's farmhouse while my dad was going to real estate school
Yeah.
and trying to kind of reset his life. But I had a great childhood, born in the Midwest. I have an older brother, 2 sisters. I loved my parents and my dad. I was probably closer to my dad than my mom. But so my dad got into the real estate business later in life. And in that small town, he had some success. So from an early age, 5th grade on, I always wanted to be in the real estate business. I wanted to emulate my father.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it was good. I went to Catholic grade school, high school, and college.
Yeah.
And then I went back when I got out of college to go work with my dad, and I realized that I was in a market that was too small, and I kind of wanted to play business bigger.
You went back to your small town?
I did.
Wow. Yeah.
And because, I mean,
Where'd you go to college?
I went to college, Quincy University. It was called Quincy College when I
Okay.
went
And
there,
where
but
was
now it's
that?
University. If you look at the tip of Illinois, where it juts out by Missouri, right there, it was right on the border.
So it wasn't a big town either.
No.
Okay.
And, well, I mean, I applied to 50 schools and got into none. My college football coach, my high school football coach, got me into college. He called Quincy and got me in. My dad said to me after we made these 50 applications, he said, "I'm done. It's junior college for you." And then
Bro, that's impressive.
Well, it is, because think about that. Back in the day, like 50 applications, those are handwritten.
And Tulane would have taken me if I'd have gone to summer school, but I knew I couldn't go to Tulane because I knew I would not function well in New Orleans.
Yeah. Yeah.
Too much fun.
Too much New Orleans.
Yeah.
Okay, so you had moved back to work with you. I want to ask, did your dad was he successful and then lost, or did he just struggle? Do you have, how did that shape you? Did it not shape you? How did all that come about?
So a lot of that was too young. Like, he was in the car business.
Okay.
He went broke.
Yeah.
And then he diverted to real estate. And so my view of him since he was in real estate was success. He was well thought of in the small town. I was really proud of him.
Yeah.
You know, he was the guy raising money for all the local charities, and he was very well thought of. So I had a lot of admiration for my dad. The thing that surprised me is when I got out of school, and I had an alcohol problem young. I was I had quit drinking in high school. The reason I couldn't get into a school because I was a party animal.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I was real insecure.
Yeah.
And I used alcohol to give me some courage, I would say.
Yeah.
And when I went to college, I got my girlfriend pregnant when I was saying goodbye. So I went to school, and in November she called me. We had broken up. I was dating another girl, and she said, pregnant, and I went home and married her.
Uh-huh.
And so then I quit all partying and just focused on college and getting out, and went back, and I was very driven to try to provide for my family. So married at 18.
Wow.
It's too young, by the way.
Yeah.
And went back home and worked for my father, and I got to where I could see that the game was too small there. I couldn't make a decent living.
Yeah.
So I started going to Chicago.
Okay.
Because it's when fast food was rolling out. This is in the 80s. So
kind of early on, you're doing commercial real estate, even
yeah, I was selling
not residential.
houses.
Yeah,
I
okay.
was
You were doing
selling
anything.
houses. I was doing everything.
Okay. Yep.
Leasing storefronts, whatever.
Yeah, whatever.
But then I started traveling to Chicago because it's when McDonald's and Burger King and everybody was rolling it out.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any money, but I started tying up land in the suburbs, and I could get 90 to 120 days to tie it up. And then I'd try to get McDonald's or Burger King. One would pay for both. And then so I just started kind of scratching out a living doing that.
Wow.
And, but I could see I either had to go to Chicago or I had to get to a bigger market.
Yeah.
Came to Dallas on a vacation. I had drank myself out of my marriage. My drinking was ramped up pretty good. Excuse me. So I was at a crossroads in my life where I said, okay, I've got to do something.
Yeah.
And I hadn't totally committed to not drinking. At that point, I was hanging on to it.
It's a hard drug to knock, baby.
But I came to Dallas, and I saw Dallas. And it was before the RTC days, and it was just, there were buildings everywhere. And
So what year is that?
this
You
would have
remember?
been in 86,
Oh, wow. Okay. All
a
right.
long time ago.
Yep.
Yeah.
Before they had, I think they were still riding horses in '86.
They definitely were out north.
Yes. So I went back to my dad, and I said, Dad, I'm going to go try Texas.
Yep. And are you divorced at this point?
I'm in the middle of it.
You're in the middle of it.
My
And you have one child, or you have other? You have two. Okay. Yep.
And no faith.
Yep.
So I'm living pretty much by the world's rules.
Yep.
And I know my drinking is at a point where I need to do something, but I hadn't kind of figured out what to do. So I was trying to manage it.
How old were you at this point?
28.
28.
So I come to Dallas, and I had $300 and a stereo. And
Big speakers.
Such
Big
such a
speakers.
guy comment.
It's true.
300. You're remembering you had $300, but a stereo as well.
So I wanted to take care of my family.
Yeah.
Everybody thought in my family I was running away, and I was really
Interesting.
running. I was running to something, and
Yeah.
I needed a reset.
You needed a fresh start.
Right. And again, my faith didn't come in at this point.
Yep.
And so I came to Dallas and didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
Started selling homes because I didn't know my way around. I tried to get a job in commercial real estate. Nobody would hire me.
Yep.
I didn't know my way around the city. So I started selling homes because I needed a salary.
Yep.
And did that for about 18 months. My drinking got to where I would wake up in the morning and I'd grab the glass. I sat down at night, and you can convince yourself of a lot of things. Usually people that abuse alcohol hang out with people that abuse alcohol, so it's normal. So
Yeah,
you're
right.
around people that do it all the time. But when you're picking the glass up in the morning before you brush your teeth, you know that's not so good.
And there's no, and there's no one else around. You
Right.
really are. Yeah. Yeah.
So I said, okay, I got to do something. And so I went to a counselor, and the counselor said I passed the test, that I'm an alcoholic. I said, are you sure? And he goes, yeah. I'm sure.
With flying colors.
And so he gave me these points of what I had to watch.
Yep.
So then I started investigating. So I went to an AA meeting.
You did.
I got up one morning. It was a Monday morning after a weekend of drinking, and opened the Yellow Pages and went to an AA meeting. and I walked in there and didn't want to be there, but I went, and I got sober for 30 days. So after 30 days, I said, well, hell, if I can quit for 30 days, I'll go ahead and drink.
Yeah.
And the counselor told me, he said, if you quit for a year, a month, or 10 years. When you start again, you'll go right back to where you were within days. It doesn't take long. So I said, okay, I'm going to test it. So 30 days, I'm back, and I'm going to just drink socially. I'm back at TGI Fridays, and I'm drinking martinis out of beer schooners. And, you know, it took me about 5 days, and I was right back. And I said, this is not good.
And so when you're in this season, Bill, you're here single, correct?
Yeah, I'm here single, and I'm trying to figure out my way in business.
Yeah, and your ex-wife, she stayed back in Chicago or wherever.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So you're here single, all right?
And I'm sending money back.
Yeah.
And trying to support my family and trying to figure out a way to make a living.
Okay. All right.
And everybody there thought I ran to run.
Yeah.
And I really didn't. I ran to, I knew I could never make a living there or get sober there because all there was alcohol. You know, there's just nothing to do.
Yeah.
And so after 30 days, I went back to AA. I walked back in, and I was committed at that point, and I said, okay. And I would go there for breakfast, first thing in the morning. I'd go there at lunch, and then after work, I would go there at 5 o'clock and stay there till it was bedtime. And I did that for...
You stayed at the AA meeting
I
from
just
5
keep
until
going
bedtime.
home, or I'd hang out, I'd sweep, I'd do whatever. I couldn't go home. I couldn't go to a restaurant.
Correct.
Because I was afraid of what I would do.
1,000%. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did that, and I'm broke.
Yeah.
And when you drink a lot, you don't tell the truth.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of messes.
Yeah.
So I got sober. And the thing getting sober did for me was I believed if I could get sober, there's nothing I couldn't do.
Yep.
So I remember once St. Patrick's Day was a big day for me when I was drinking. My dad walked into a bar. I so admired my dad. I was sitting at the bar, and I couldn't walk or talk, hardly. And he came up and talked to me, and you could see the disgust in his face. He was nice to me. He never said a word, but I could see it.
Yep.
And I remember sitting there that day thinking, that didn't feel good. And I just want my dad, you know, I'm letting my dad down. I'm letting everybody down. So I got sober. And so every day for like a year, I would live this life of just going to AA meetings. And I knew I was in a dead-end job, and I had to change that. So once I got sober for like 8-10 months, I said, okay. And I just went free-falling. I left my job, and I started my business. I got business cards printed up, and I saved money for a fax machine when that was a big deal, right?
Oh, yeah.
Took me 90 days to buy the fax machine, and just started cold turkey. Didn't have any money. That's when they would send you credit cards. So I was living on credit cards. They'd send me one.
Yep.
And I just started my business. And I brokered a deal to the Bass family in Fort Worth. And
That's your first deal.
it was my first deal
On your
in
own.
Dallas. Yeah. And
So
they
tell
asked
me about how'd that happen? How'd you even...
So I had a guy that I was selling homes for that left and went to the Bass family, and he was buying and selling land for the Robert Bass family. He went over there. I brokered them a deal. He asked me to come work there. So I took the business cards, threw them in the drawer, and went over there and worked for Rainwater and Bonderman, which were two incredible people, for like 3 years. And I learned, it kind of forged my view of life as an investor in real estate. And they were contrarians. When everybody was scared, they were running in and buying, and when everybody was buying, they were selling. And so it's probably the best educational years of my life being around those two people. And I was nothing. I was just a broker bringing deals, but it was osmosis. And I just would take every minute I could get with Mr. Rainwater. He was an incredible person.
Bill, you mentioned one of them. What are some of those other lessons that you take away from those 3 years? Obviously, you took a lot, but personally, professionally, what were those lessons?
Well, I mean, they were bold, right? They had a plan and they stuck with it, and Rainwater was very nice and nurturing person. Bonderman was less. I spent less time with him, but it was once you learn your craft, you have to respect what you've learned and have the confidence to execute a plan. And so I was given $200 million from American Express that they gave to the Bass family, and I was out investing that money during the RTC days, during the meltdown. And that was a time when they weren't sure it would ever recover.
Yeah.
So it was just in a free fall.
Yeah.
But what I learned, one, the culture there was hard to function in, but the experience and the learning was incredible. And so I walked out of there with a plan on how to be an investor in real estate. I probably would have chased every up market. Now in up markets, I'm more defensive, and in down markets, I'm more aggressive. And it takes confidence to do that, because when everybody's scared, it's probably your best. You're buying at value. You make money in real estate when you buy it.
Yep. So you're there 3 years. Is that what's next? Do you then go and start your own thing?
I said, okay, I'm going to go get back in my own business. And at that point, I went and interviewed, because I thought, at that point, and I talked to 3 brokerage companies, and they weren't interested. So I said, okay, I got the business cards back out, put the fax machine, plugged it in, and off we go. And it was during the RTC days.
What year was that, Bill?
Would have been probably 90.
Okay. All right.
Guessing, 90, 91.
Yep.
So I looked around. I said, okay, I thought office buildings were cool. And I said, okay, I'm going to be a tenant rep broker. It's kind of when Staubach was starting up and it was a hot new thing. RTC days, everything, all the buildings were going back to the banks. People had signed 10-year leases with 4 years of free rent. Wow. And so there was a bunch of people getting kicked out of space. And I looked and I said, so you'd have a law firm that took 20,000 feet.
Yeah.
But they got a bunch of free rent. But when the rent came due, they couldn't pay it. So they're getting evicted. But the law firm, if they were in 7,000 feet, could be a great tenant.
Yeah.
So what I did is I always looked for inefficiencies in markets. I said, I'm going to go get that law firm. And I'm going to go to the people that are getting these buildings back. And I'm going to say, hey, they're in 20, but if they were in 7, they'd be a great tenant.
Right.
And I said, when they pay rent, you pay me. So every month I'd get a check. And I niched out a business that everybody was chasing all this other stuff. And I had all these tenants.
Interesting.
And I built a really nice business really quickly where there was monthly income. And I started really learning a lot about, there was a big gap between what people were building. Everybody was building something that they thought was pretty, but the tenants wanted efficiency and density, and just like today, it's changing again, right? It keeps changing. So, because my whole goal was to be a developer at some point and be an owner. And so I built a business doing that. And while I did that, then I transitioned to where I wanted to. The problem with being a broker is if you're like, your lease is up, if you sign a 10-year lease here, how do I keep my relationship with you over 10 years? So when the lease comes up, I don't know if you keep using the same person, but it's a
long time.
It's tough. So then I said, okay, I'm going to go after multi-market business where I can have one relationship and do multiple deals with them every year. Right. And they become your friends. So I went after companies. I started reading Forbes and Fortune, and I would go to San Jose, California. And I called on the head of network appliance when it was him and his secretary. And I'd read an article on Forbes magazine, and I walked in and I said, hey, I want to be a real estate guy. He goes, well, I got 1,500 feet. And I said, well, Forbes says you're going to be a big deal. And in 5 years, I was doing $5 to $7 million a year in revenue with them.
Wow.
So I'd go try to catch them really early and did the really hard work, opening 1,500-foot offices that would go to 20 and 30 and 40,000 feet. The hole in my business plan was I had 2 offices, so when they got really big, I wasn't a safe choice, and they go to more of the big national companies.
At some point, they would outgrow you, even though you nurtured them all those years. At some point, they yeah.
So in this process, I'm sober.
Yep.
So now I'm dealing with all my messes, people I owed money to. When you get sober, what you have to do is go make amends. Like if I offend you, I need to go back and apologize to you. If I owe you money, maybe I owe you $1,000 and I can't pay you, and I'm going to pay you $10 a month or something. It's not what you want.
Right.
You get to choose if you want to forgive me, but I have to go deal with it. Right. And the whole deal is so you can go walk into a room, and if I run into you, I know I've dealt with it.
That's right.
Doesn't mean you've forgiven me.
Right.
But you did your part, what you can control.
I do my part. I can only do what I can do. And if you want to hang on to it, you get to.
Yeah.
But at least I've addressed it.
That's right.
And like with my ex-wife, my ex-wife, I went and made amends, and I had a lot of regrets for the way I lived my life as an alcoholic. And it took her 30 years. And I always get choked up on this one, but when she forgave me, it was a big day for me because, you just learn that, everything you do in life has consequences, and you have to realize, so it helps you make decisions in your life as you mature that you try to avoid those pitfalls. But being in the ditch like I was with my alcoholism, it really molds you into realizing how important your actions are every day. And like for me as a parent, I've got 4 kids. I've got 2 with my first marriage and 2 with my second. I am so over married. And my first kid saw me as a train wreck, and my second kids, I'm in the Bible every morning. I try to be live a quality life, and a life that my number one goal every day is to just please God. And if I can go live a life that pleases God, you should be happy. I should be okay with you guys. But I diverted there. But going back and making amends and cleaning up messes, it took me like 5 years. I was broke, and I had a lot of relationships to repair, and a lot of them were with my family.
Bill, let me ask you, how has that shaped the way that you do business today? That making amends, those years that you took, how has that impacted the way, the culture at Cawley Partners, the way you do business? I'm sure it has to shape almost everything in the way you handle relationships.
Yeah, I mean, life is just about relationships. It's about memories and relationships. The stuff doesn't matter. And the older you get, the less stuff you want. And I value, I want my kids to be proud of me, right? And I want to live a life that, I don't want to be special. I just want I want the world to be a little bit better place when I'm gone than it was before I got here. And you realize that giving's better than getting. It's so much better. And I think, if you focus on something other than yourself in your life, it's so much more rewarding. So I'm big relationship. I mean, you've got nothing if you got, your reputation's all you really got. You start there. And then after that, opportunity comes behind your relationship and how you treat people. And if you're not genuine, it doesn't take long for people to figure it out. And I will tell you another thing. I think transparency is good. We all have had problems. We've all made mistakes. And I think the more open you can be about what mistakes you've made in your life, it brings opportunity to you. And I am drawn to a person that's open. I run from someone that's putting a wall up because there's no relationship there or intimacy. I want intimacy, and I want true and deep relationships with friends and people.
Well, the power and the transparency is that it gives the other person permission. Like if you're transparent, it gives the other person permission to also be transparent, which then that creates this magic in a relationship.
Right.
And so it's almost like you have to be the person that first says, I'm going to be transparent, open, and
Yeah.
I may say some things that are uncomfortable, or, that you'd be like, oh, wow, you shared a lot there, but then it
Right.
gives you permission to do the same. And
Totally.
then that's where the relationship
We all
happens.
realize we're broken. It's just who's willing to have the courage to, and I
Raise
think
their hand first and say,
100%. And Bill, obviously, just one of the most courageous things I think on the planet is overcoming addiction, and the power of walking into a room and say, my name is Doug Hudson and I'm an addict, or I'm what Bill, and that courage, that sets you up to, and it makes sense that you're now going to crave those kind of real relationships. And your courage often, I'm sure, opens the door for someone else to say, hey, Bill, you know what? I'm glad you said that, because I'm really struggling.
Right. And I tell you what, it brings you opportunity to be able to help people.
Yes.
And so one of the things I've found is that's why I'm open about my alcoholism and my faith.
Yep.
And, I don't want to lead with faith, but I think faith is important. It is for me. And so, the more open you are when people are in the weeds or they have problems, they know where you are and what you stand for, and it brings opportunity. And like for alcoholism, my number one goal in business, other than serving my employees and my clients, is to help people with alcohol and drug problems.
Yes.
And also help people on their faith journey.
Yep.
And I've never had anybody be offended by me. I've had rejection, but I've never had anybody be offended.
It's incredible. That's genuineness. That's what generally people get offended is disingenuousness, but you're genuine about how you want to help them. So you're doing tenant rep. Then do you start to move into development?
Okay.
And how's that transition start to happen?
So I'm doing tenant rep. I'm traveling all over the country, and I'm now starting to build a little bit of wealth. I'm in Chicago.
Okay.
I've got a insurance.
So you're living in Chicago?
No, I'm traveling.
Okay.
To Chicago.
Okay. Yep.
I have an insurance company that needs 60,000 feet. They had let their lease option expire. They wouldn't make a decision. So we're up there and there's no space. And Hewlett Packard has a building they're trying to sell. I knew Hewlett Packard. I'd called on them. They'd never done any business with me, but I knew them because I kept calling on them. And so I can't find any space for him. So I call Hewlett Packard guy up and he goes, I don't want to lease this building. I could have leased it several times. I want to sell it. I said, can we come look at it? So we go look at it. We have no options. And we're on the airplane flying back to Dallas with the client. And I go, if I could figure out a way to buy that building, would you take 60,000 feet in that building? And he goes, yeah, I got no options. So I come back and I call the Hewlett Packard guy and I make him an offer like $60 a foot. It was like I cashed my 401k because I was just now starting to build up money. I needed $250,000 of earnest money. Put the earnest money up and they gave me 90 days. I put it under contract. You could never do this today. So then I go to my friends at Holiday Fenolio, Jody Thornton and Mark Gibson. And I go, hey, they get me a loan with a tenant. So if I had the tenant, I had a loan. If I don't have the tenant, I don't have a loan.
Right.
I'm working on a lease with my client, and it hits me that when I was talking to the Hewlett Packard guy, he goes, I could have leased this building several times. I want to sell it. So I call him back, and I go, hey, you said you had some, and he had 2 Motorola subsidiaries that were like within a mile of there. I call the Motorola subsidiary. I get one that wants the whole building. They sign a 10-year lease. I call my other client, and I go, listen, I got a tenant that wants the whole building. He said, find me something else. And I did. But long story short, they took the whole building for 10 years. And I had about a 3-week period where I had to go hard before I had the lease signed, and I just did it. I said, screw it, I'm going to do it. And it created a $1 million in cash flow a year for 10 years.
Wow.
On my first deal.
Yep.
And from then on, I had the confidence, and I felt like I could play, right? Then in my brokerage business once, I did TGI Fridays corporate headquarters, and that was another defining moment. I was Staubach. They were going to hire Roger Staubach. And I'll tell you, if you're in the brokerage business, you're eating his dust every day, all day long.
Well, yeah, because he showed up with that signed football at every one of those deals. So you beat out Staubach for the TGA Friday?
Yeah. But when I did that, that was earlier in my career, but it was a big defining moment to where it gave me the confidence that I thought I could compete. And so those two defining deals, now my drinking is at an all-time high at this point. I go on a motorcycle trip. I was a bachelor. I was divorced, and go to Aspen and Telluride for 4th of July weekend. It's the 5th of July. I'm in Aspen, heading to Telluride, going over the pass, and I got in a motorcycle accident. And I was passing a guy, and I couldn't make the turn, and I'm in the air. This is right after Superman. Reeves fell off the horse.
Wow. So what year is this, Bill?
97.
Okay.
So I'm in the air on this motorcycle. I swear to you, I remember being in the air off the road. I push off the bike. I kept thinking about Superman, and I kind of crossed my arms across my chest, and I landed. And the impact was unbelievable. And I just busted my arms. Like the biggest piece of bone from wrist to elbow was an inch. It was just a puzzle. And I'm laying in the ditch, and my right leg is across my chest.
Oh, my gosh.
And I'm laying there, and I have no pain. It's just warm. And I think I'm toast. I think I'm dying. And I was with some buddies, but we were trying to pass. They were way ahead of me. And I'm laying there, and for the first time in 10 years, 20 years, I started praying. I'm trying to make a deal. I'm a real estate guy. And I go, and I'm laying there thinking, if this is my last day, what have I done? And I was thinking about how I was living my life. I was a consumer. I was a taker. Now, I tried to do the right thing, but I was a consumer. I was not living a life that I would be proud of today. And I really did think I was waiting for the blood to come out the mouth and die. So I start making a deal. I'm praying and praying and praying. And I said,
Do you remember some of what you're saying?
Yeah, I was estranged from my kids. I kept imagining my funeral. And what my legacy was. Not my legacy to the world, to me. What I had done. And how I had lived my life. And I didn't like it. I was estranged from my kids because of my alcoholism. I was sober, but I hadn't repaired that. And I was living a life that I was a consumer. I was a taker.
So you hadn't started drinking again at this point.
No, I'm sober.
So
I'm sober.
But you
I'm
still
living a
have all
sober
that
life.
damage.
But
The damage. The consequences.
I'm not living the life I'm living.
Of course.
So
you hadn't started your faith journey at that point.
this is where it starts.
Yeah.
So I'm laying in the ditch, and I'm trying to make a deal. And I just said, Lord God, God, get me out of here, and I'm going to change it up. So then all of a sudden I'm feeling pain. I'm going, I guess I'm not going to die. I swear, I thought I was getting
Makes it.
And so I figure out a way. I said, okay, I got to get out of here. And I crawl up to the side of the road. And everybody goes, this elbow was broken. So I use this elbow and this leg just to crawl up the side of the road. Rolled over on the side of the road. A family from Louisville was on a road trip. They pull over. They stay with me. It took hours for the ambulance to come. It was 5th of July on a Friday. All the doctors were out partying. Put me in the ambulance. I go to Gunnison. And the doctor, I was just so euphoric. I was in a lot of pain. They wouldn't give me any pain meds, but I was euphoric that I was alive. I actually thought I was toast. 23 hours or 20 hours or 18 hours of surgery. The doctor said, you're in a good spot because I see all this stuff a lot.
Yeah.
He said, you did a pretty good job. So the next day I wake up and I've got metal rods on both sides of my arms, and I'm sitting in a hospital bed up, blood's oozing out of my hands, but I'm alive. And the doctor comes in and he goes, you did a good job. He said, this is going to be a long recovery. And I had a male nurse. This is a really good story. This guy's name was Paul. What I didn't know when I met him was he had been a detective in New York City,
No way.
shot twice. Second time he got shot, he went to nursing school. And he's my nurse.
Yeah.
So he walks in and he looks at me and he goes, you're a mess. He says, well, you got to eat. This elbow is broke. He sticks a piece of rubber in my hand and sticks a spoon in there and brings me a bowl of Cheerios. And he says, you need to eat. And he puts the table up and I start trying to eat and I'm spilling Cheerios and I start crying, start having a little pity party. Kind of is when it hit me where it's not going to be a quick recovery.
And Bill, family-wise, you're not remarried?
I'm not. I'm single and estranged from my...
Correct. So there's no one necessarily flocking to Gunnison to come sit by the bed.
No.
Talking about consequences.
No, but no,
you're living some consequences.
People in my business were, but yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So he comes in and he says, this is such a good learning lesson. So he comes in and he looks at me and he goes, he said, I'm going to clean you up. And he goes, I'm going to take you outside. I go, take me outside. I mean, odds in my hands. He lifts me up, put me in a wheelchair and wheels me out to a tree. This is like the 6th or 7th of July, beautiful weather. And he said, I'm going to leave you here. I couldn't do anything, right? My arms are like this. Parks me there, and where he parked me was where people that had been wheelchair bound come for therapy. So I'm sitting there watching a guy spend 15 minutes getting out of a van, 10 minutes, one after another. And he comes back and gets me in an hour, and I go, I'm in. I got it. He said, you need to know you're lucky. You know, you're walking and this is going to be not easy, but it could be a lot worse.
Right.
From that point on, I was all in, and no more pity party, and it was just about going through it. And you know, so I had a bunch of surgeries over a year. As I would get better, so then I said, okay, I made this deal. I've got to fix it. So I went back to the Catholic Church, and I was going to church, and I was in there, and I found myself daydreaming. I was a commitment of time, but I wasn't getting fed. Nothing against the Catholic Church, but it just wasn't feeding me. God kept putting people in my life. It was like after I made that commitment in the ditch, he just put people in my life. And I had bought a home when I left for this trip, and it had a swimming pool. And they asked me while I was in the hospital, what do you want to do about the pool? I said, leave the guy that was cleaning it. So in between, I would go home. They'd have to re-break my arms because the bones would grow too long. You couldn't supinate. So once it healed, they go back in and re-break them. And there was a process of doing this. So I'm out there. They wheel me in the wheelchair on a Saturday out on the deck of my house. I had a nurse. My son at this point had come to live with me to take care of me. And the pool guy comes. He's a Christian Life Assembly minister cleaning pools for extra money. And he sees me sitting there. I'm his customer. He asks me what happened, and I tell him I'm on this faith journey. I didn't even know who.
Yeah. You don't. Yeah.
So he brings me the next Saturday. He brings me a Walkman. I couldn't do anything once he put it on like this, and he pushed the button.
You're captive.
And he'd let me listen to these.
You had no choice.
Right. I'd listen to these tracks, and after that, we'd have a discussion.
No way.
2 or 3 times, then I'm looking forward to it. So I made sure I was out there So I had the accident 5th of July, mid-March. I'm accepting Christ on my pool deck at Williams.
Awesome.
And so that was an immediate life change for me, euphoria. Like, so But if your listeners don't understand, what I asked is I asked Christ to come live in my heart. And I wanted to now live a life that honored him. So I just wanted to live at a higher level and have a little bit higher standard for the decisions I make in my life. And then after that, it was euphoric. Like everything I was doing in my life, I had to change the way I was dating and how I was living. And, but it was like I lived half my life to 47 one way, and now I'm living a new life.
So how you were 47 when you had the accident?
Yeah.
46.
Yeah, 47.
Yeah.
So now I'm like running around like euphoric, and I'd go through these surgeries, but it was like I was just like just a happy little camper, right? And so now in my business, a lot of times I hang out in the gray. It was black or white. It was just open, and I became more and more open, and it just felt really good. And so then I felt like, you know, everybody else had to have what I've got, you know, this peace and this happiness. So first was my family and my parents. Like, you know, I bought a bunch of Bibles and I'm on airplanes. I flew to see my parents in the Midwest, and I think they asked Christ into their life just to get me to leave them alone. But, you know, when I had older brother and sisters, so faith became a really, and continues to be a big part of my life. And so one of my like main goals in life and why I stay in business, because I'm 71 and I like it, you know, but I've got good balance and I'm taking every trip and living my life, but I like my business. So it's fun. But is helping people with drug and alcohol problems and being open about it. So God hopefully puts people in my life, helping young people find positions and their way, connecting them with people in real estate business. And the other is my faith journey. And because you never know, the more open I can be, there's somebody seeking where I can hopefully tell them my story and explain to them how they can get the peace that I've got and make their lives better.
Bill, this is amazing. I want to, for the next few moments, again, thank you for your courage. Thank you. I just know your story is going to find a lot of people who need to hear your faith, your resilience. Let's talk about your business for a few minutes. How many team members now at Cawley Partners?
So we have 100 people. We're in the office, multifamily, and industrial business. I was strictly office for years, and like 5 years ago, you could see that with COVID and what was going on, I needed to kind of diversify. I'm also trying to set my business up. I've got a great partner in Brian Neitzel. It's cloudy in his office. The sun's always shining. And together we're really good.
Yeah.
And he's early 50s, and he's just a really smart guy. He looks at things differently. But I knew we needed to diversify. So we kind of went out, and I wanted to also set them up after I'm done. And I kind of think I'm going to die at my desk, but I want to give them the option to where they're less reliant on me. And one of the flaws in my business was I was the rainmaker, and I had all these people that worked for me that would skin what I brought in.
Right.
And so now I've got a really solid partner that's in industrial and multifamily, and so we're diversified, and I think the business is set up really well for after me, even though I'm not planning on leaving.
Exactly. Let's talk about that for a minute, because so much of our audience, Bill, is our business owners. We talk a lot about kind of the 4 pillars of kind of exiting a business, couple personal, couple professional. What are some very pragmatic things you have to do or not do as you try to push that leadership away from you? On a daily or a monthly, are there processes or daily decisions that you decide? How do you handle that?
I think number one is capability. You've got to find people that can do it on their own. You've got to find someone. You got to find your replacement.
Yeah.
And did
that start with Brian?
Well, Brian is the guy that keeps me out of trouble.
Okay.
Because I love every deal I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And again, as I get older, I'm much more picky about it. But he's just looks at everything differently than I do. So it's a combination of that. But yet he doesn't want to be out front like I am. So so it's about finding the people that can execute. So you got to have the right people.
Yep.
And also for me, letting go. And actually my role's changing. My role is more relationship with our investors and strategy, where I was much more on the deal side. I'm getting less on the deal side, even though I'm involved in it. So I'm empowering these people to go execute, but it's having the right people. And it's not always been perfect because but I've never felt better about my team and our culture. Brian gets credit. We have created a culture where everybody is happy. And this culture here felt really good when I walked in.
Thank you.
You could feel it with your people.
Thank you.
People are happy. And, a flawed culture, I've had them.
Yep.
It's the hardest thing on earth to change.
Yeah.
It just is.
Yeah.
And you have to anybody that's unhappy needs to go find someplace else to be unhappy. And with compassion.
Right.
But we have a great culture, and Brian has created it. And so I'm at a point now where I believe everybody's good at one or two things. When we were growing up, they wanted us to focus on what we were bad at to get better at it. I believe screw that. Just focus on what you're good at and find somebody else that's good at what you're not good at.
That's right.
Okay, take over education. That's so well said.
Right? Yeah. And it's I call it unique ability.
Yeah.
Everybody's got this unique ability.
Yeah.
I got two things. I'm relationship, and I think I understand the real estate market and how to invest. Because it's investing is it's all about you make your money when you make the decision to buy something. It's not when you exit. And so many people don't look at time as risk. Time is risk. So you have to, and it's all about people. Like you give me a bad deal with a great guy, it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
You give me an incredible deal with a bad, not by bad person, I mean not aligned with you.
Yeah.
You're toast.
Yeah.
And every time I've ever been in that position, it's not good. So I try to avoid those positions.
I want to go back to the pillars for one second.
Go.
So we have these 4 pillars around kind of exit planning, and you've touched on a lot of them, but I want to focus in on 2 things quickly here. One of the pillars is this idea of purpose, right? So like helping clients figure out, okay, you go sell your business, now what?
Right.
Right? Like, what are you going to do for 18 hours a day for the next 25 years? Play golf?
Right.
Well, I don't know.
way.
Right. So
That doesn't look good to me at all.
right. So you've clearly done some work in that area. So talk a little bit about that. And then the other pillar I want to explore is really just from a valuation perspective. You've built something that's valuable. So how do you think about, transferring that value to the next generation within the business, extracting some of that value for you and your family as you wind down over the next decade or whatever? So those are the 2 things I want you to touch on.
Okay, so let's start with the value. So I've sold 2 businesses in my life. I got into the cell phone business. I did a bunch of work for AT&T, and there was this young kid. He was so sharp, and I was doing tenant rep work for them. And I looked at him and I said, "Listen, Jeff, if you ever want to get in business, call me. I'll back you." And this is going back 15 years ago. And he came to me one day and he said, "Hey, I want to leave AT&T." At one time he wanted to run AT&T, and he got to the point where he realized he didn't want to.
Yeah.
And he came to me and said, "I want to open a cell phone store business." So I backed him. We became partners. We made a deal on the back of a napkin, handshake. And we grew to the 2nd largest AT&T dealer in the country.
That's awesome.
And remember when GameStop was looking for revenue and they bought all those AT&T stores? So number 1, 2, 3, and 4th top AT&T agents sold to GameStop.
Wow.
So we sold. And Jeff came to me and he goes, you know, he hasn't worked since. He's on flip-flops and a T-shirt right now sitting in St. Louis. And he goes, what am I going to do? I go, whatever you want. And now his problem was he was young. And he's figured it out, right? Like, so for me, I have no issue with selling, right? I also sold my brokerage business in 2007 to my employees. So in my situation today, it's more about taking care of my employees than me. I know that sounds crazy, but I've got enough. And so when I sell, it's going to be about what's best for them, and it's probably going to be to them.
Yeah.
And it's probably going to be at a number that's a lot lower than if it goes to someone else.
Right.
And because for a long time, the value of my business was me. And I can see it changing now because I've got good people in place to where it's less reliant on me. But really, I think clearly it's going to be to them. Instead of taking it to the market. And so that's kind of where I'm going there. And I kind of want to stay in it as long as I can because I like it. And I don't see anywhere in the Bible where it says retire. And I will also say to this, I mean, I have good friends that have retired, and it turns into gin rummy and golf, and that's great, but
A lot of this.
Right.
With it.
Right. I want to have purpose. This is my purpose, right? And I think I've diverted it. Like 30 or 40% of my time, I'm working with young people, you know, faith journey and et cetera, alcohol issues. I mean, you know.
Well, it's interesting that you said that about retirement because I say that a lot too. And obviously in the business that we're in, we're always working with people who are in this transition phase. And I always say, you know, retirement is not a biblical concept. Like it never says in the Bible, oh, you know, when you get to a certain stage or age in life, like you should sunset and, you know, whatever golf was back in biblical days. But the other part of it is too that I think just from a longevity perspective and from a staying sharp and staying
I think
right, like I've seen so much decline in people when they stop, and there's something about waking up every morning, and you know, even if you're not the rainmaker and creating all of it, but if you're in there and you're engaged and you're, you know, helping people and work, like it brings purpose to life, which then I think creates longevity in life and a fulfilled life.
Right. Like I want to live as long as I can, and I want to stay as sharp as I can. So like all my buddies, very wealthy. I mean, they're not wearing no socks. I mean, they got $8 pants on, and they're wearing them every day, and they don't care. And they're eating bowls of potato chips, and I'm just going. I'm not going there. And I don't know, man. I only God knows what He's got in store for me. But I think you got to keep using your brain. If I woke up today and I didn't have anything to do, like I'm still giddy on Sunday night. I'm getting ready to go. You know, and
I want to go. You asked the purpose question. It's a big part of our 4 pillars. You've kind of exemplified it, Bill, but I want to be a little more, as we start to wind down, I want to be really specific. If you're speaking at a seminar of 100 business owners and you're going to talk to them about purpose, I think what we've watched so often is the business becomes their purpose. So if and when they do exit, their self-esteem, their time, all their structure
goes away.
Purpose goes away. How would you challenge a group of successful business owners to think about a true broader purpose?
Yeah, I think, like for me, I think you have to start navigating that way before you execute it, right? And so for me, my whole identity is my business. And again, like, I've got a great marriage. I'm way over married. Keely and I have 2 kids. I've got 4. I've got 2 that are, one's at Dallas Baptist and one's at SMU. and I'm happy. Like I love my wife. I want to be around her all the time. She's my best friend. So I've got that rock in my life, and it's all based on my faith, I think, and our faith and our family's faith, because it keeps you together, because you realize all the basics of, if you're going to please God, my wife's going to be happy, right? But so I have that, but I think I'm in the middle of transitioning right now, and I've been doing it, and I've been changing my role, because one of the also thing I think is you have to live life. Like as you get, I'm 71. I don't know how the hell did that happen. Yeah. I mean, it got here really quick. It did.
Yeah.
And so like I travel and I go on every trip, but I think you have to gradually execute. I can't imagine just selling and sitting there the next day going, now what? I don't know does that answer your question?
Well, and I think part of the conversation on that is you mentioned unique ability earlier.
Yeah.
Which we talk about that a lot. We use that same language at True North, and we've talked about it on the podcast before as well. But it's, you have this unique ability, right? And so how does God want to utilize that unique ability for greater good for the balance of your life?
Yes. Okay. One of the big issues, like, so I have a prayer journal, and I have a prayer journal, and I accepted Christ in 1997. I have a prayer journal going back to 1997. And every morning I look at the prayer journal. I start from the beginning, 1997. And I check off answered prayers. Now, I've taken my prayer journal and put it on my phone. It's electronic, because I can put little prayer hands next to the answered prayers. And there's so many times I've prayed for something and God's answered in a different way. But I start my day in the Bible and in my prayer journal. And so it takes me down this journey since 1997 of all this answered prayer. And then I also go into all the people I'm praying for today. And I think if you're living a life like that, there's a piece about it that I think you really realize. Like, one of the things I pray about every morning is to control my schedule, because I am shorting my family because I'm talking to young kids. I mean, I bet you I have hour-long meetings with 9 college kids this week.
Wow.
Coffee, 3 o'clock, whatever the hell it is, and they're either looking for a job or guidance, or they just want to meet me because I'm a connector or whatever. And so now I'm praying to manage that better. But I just think transitioning to where you've got a purpose outside your business.
Okay. I want to end here. What's the first step? We've got a business owner, $62 million in revenue this year, 150 employees. They're listening in the car, on vacation. What's their first step from your perspective if they go, man, I don't really have a purpose outside of my business, or I don't know. What's the first step you would tell them to do?
I mean, you've got to find something you're compassionate about to where you're giving. And, if you're not spiritual or you don't have a strong faith, number one, I would go work on that one, because the peace that brings is irreplaceable. But if that doesn't sound appealing at this point, I would find something that you care about that you can give to where there's purpose. Because if you find a purpose, but you got to believe in it. You can't don't just get on a board you don't care. It's got to be something. Find something you're compassionate about. And I would say you should be doing that before you sell it.
Bill, unbelievable time. And that last comment, I think, is powerful and going to help a lot of people. Scott, what else you got?
That was amazing.
Thanks.
you.
Bill, beyond grateful. Thanks for making
Thanks for
the
having
investment
me.
of
This is
time.
fun.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on Decision Points. Have a great rest of your day.